the full complement tonight. I'm Ron Nielsen, and this is Fearless Flight Live. We come to you every Tuesday night with, for anybody out there who's afraid to fly or who maybe knows somebody, or you just like to talk about aviation and airplanes and the price fare increase. So the airlines are about to make it all up in one fell swoop, it looks like. So who said, okay. You say, is it still going out live? Okay.
It is live, and if you would, well, we're not seeing the presentation yet.
No, not yet.
Okay,
I haven't done that yet. So, okay. When I heard the gasp, I thought, oh no, it can't
we're
be
good. We're good.
Okay, so we'll do one, and we'll share, and we'll turn the slides on.
So while Ron is doing the presentation today, Captain Eric Larson, Flight Attendant Diane, Elaine. Hey guys, welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here.
All right, there we go. Now we see the presentation.
Okay, welcome everybody again, and we're happy to have you all here. Let me get this slide moved around over here. Oh, please cooperate.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Okay, and we have some special guests. We always like to open the show talking about our Birds of a Feather group. Our special guests tonight actually were the ones that won our prize the last time we did this, and so we thought it'd be a great opportunity, and I won't steal all the thunder from that. Okay, is it? There we go. And so make sure if you haven't joined our Birds of a Feather group, I noticed that it's really kind of accelerated. I think like the rest of the industry, people are getting the idea that maybe it's time to fly out there, and there's a lot going on, a lot of activity. We'll talk tonight just a little bit about the 101 class. It's coming up for anybody. Got several people coming from the LA area. And I thought I'd just mention there, we're still in National Claustrophobia Week. Every coaching student I had since we last met has claustrophobia as their main issue. Special guest tonight, a husband and wife team, Stephanie and Ron Calvarisi. We got a couple of things related to COVID-19 in the news update, and then we've got some themes. Actually pulled our aviation news or questions from the Facebook page this week, the Facebook group. Poll question: if you are watching us live or watching the replay, we appreciate you dropping a comment in there. I get freaked out by all the unfamiliar noises. That was one of the themes that was thread through the Facebook Birds of a Feather group this week. So if that's an issue for you, let us know, just out of curiosity. Again, a reminder about the 101 class coming up this Saturday night at Sky Harbor Airport, and you might take the link down just to go over there, even if you live in is it East Overshoe? Okay, got it. East Overshoe, and you can't get to Phoenix for our class. You can at least take a look at it, because not in May, but on June 6th, we are going to use that same registration site, and we're going to be registering for our online version of our 101 class. So finally, if you can't get to Phoenix, you're going to be able to get the benefits of the 101 class as well. We wanted to remind everybody, I've been meeting with the folks that help me out here, Diane and a couple other people, talking about the COVID-19. We're going to meet at the airport. We're not going to do the classroom like we used to in the past. We're going to go straight to the airplane, and but we'll still be maintaining the COVID-19 precautions out there. So everybody's got to wear a mask. We won't be controlling that. Diane can reinforce this. You got to have a mask on to get in the airport here at Phoenix. Sanitizing your hands and stay within social distancing 6 feet of anyone who has a confirmed COVID diagnosis. And if you have any of these symptoms, of course, if you've gone anywhere to the doctor, I get asked this most of the time, they'll ask you, even if you just come in, that morning, they ask you the same questions. Please schedule for a later class there. So, Eileen, this is our Tuesday tip, or Tip Tuesday. Which is it? Go with the
Tip Tuesday, go with the flow. As we know, air travel is filled with delays, cancellations,
aircraft swap, gate changes, all of this taking place at the last minute. And the more you're able to just kind of relax into the whole process, the less stress and anxiety you're going to have. A few years ago, I had to fly cross country. And of course, I reached out to Captain Ron. I was just a little bit nervous. So I got on the aircraft, I pre-boarded. And I got on the aircraft fully expecting the flight crew to be really supportive of me, since I was a fearful flyer at the time, that I'd have a chance to talk with the pilots. And I had it all in my head. That's how it was going to go. It didn't turn out that way at all. I got on the aircraft. I introduced myself to the flight attendant and said, I'm a fearful flyer. And she goes, oh gosh, too bad. Have a seat. So, and I spoke to the B flight attendant who works the middle of the aircraft, and she kind of said the same thing. So at that point, I realized I'm going to have to change up my flight plan if this is going to be a successful flight. And it's just a matter of shifting mindset. And once you can master that, you'll be able to weather any curveball that the airline industry can throw at you. And you'll just... And the interesting thing is, your new experience could be even more interesting than it originally was planning, than you had originally planned, in other words. At least that's what I found out. I ended up having a great time on my flight, talking with other people, and just really connecting with my seatmates and things like that. And by the time I landed 3 hours later, I was like, yes, I got this. And that came from staying flexible and just going with the flow. All yours, Ron.
So you can handle anything if you go to stay with Fearless Flight. We should have done that years ago. We could have handled our job better, maybe. So all right. Going with the flow is always a good thing. This is where we normally have Diane come in here and say a few things. This is not our nickname for her, Ding-a-ling. But we are going to talk about sounds, and so she's going to come on and talk a little bit more towards the end there, because sounds, the unfamiliar sight sounds and sensations are what trigger most people. And so we had that in a thread last week talking about that. So I thought we'd just make that a larger focus for this week. So
Bob, is it really National Claustrophobia Week, or did you slip that in there?
I did that. That's the second week. I just cheated and kept that slide in there again this week, because that's the theme for everybody that I've been talking to, and I've watched that change over the 33 years that I've been doing this. And it used to be people were more worried about the airplane and the mechanical capabilities, but the shift has really been to be more just emotionally stressed over being confined in the airplane, not being able to get out. And literally I haven't had anybody that's primarily worried about crashing, although I try to get people to admit, if you weren't worried about something going wrong, you wouldn't be worried about getting out of there, so it's just, but it's part of the nature of the anxiety that people are getting triggered by. So
I'm just saying, the claustrophobic guys get a whole week and everybody else only gets a day. They have a really good lobbying group.
Well, they
there you go. Well, they've got 2 weeks so far.
So it's okay.
Okay. So this is a slide we put up just, I think it was 2 weeks ago, and this was our winners. Stephanie Tolbert, not Tolbert, I'm told, Calvarisi, and we have her and her husband Ron with us tonight, and we want to congratulate them again. And Stephanie had never watched the show. We learned that tonight. So it was just, she was reaching out, but I don't want to steal her thunder because we want to get her on the air here. And I'll put some pictures up here. We can get that up there. That's from, oops, went too far. Don't do that. And there's the Cabo thing. I'm going to pause. I think I have to stop it. Let me know.
Yeah, you have to stop the show.
Okay, so here we go. So we'll bring Stephanie and Ron onto the screen there if they haven't given up on us by this time.
Unmute it. Right here.
I'm unmuted.
Okay. Uh-oh.
Okay, there they are. Yay!
Oh, God.
Hey, see, by the time you get done with this, Stephanie, you're going to feel a lot better about flying.
I don't think so.
And working Zoom.
That's like if you're ever working with, being a carpenter with a hammer and you hit one thumb, you hit the other one, then you forget about the first one. So
my God,
that's a little known strategy. So where do we start? Well, how did you, what prompted you to even look us up, Stephanie?
Oh, gosh, let me see, a million years of not going anywhere, being terrified to fly, planning trips. And then we're waiting for the taxi, telling my husband that I can't go on the trip. So, I just, out of desperation, was looking for options and places. And, and I kept coming back to your website.
I'm flattered to be your desperate last choice. That what's not to love about that? No, and so
it that way.
and we were talking beforehand, and when I actually called Stephanie just minutes before we went on the air 2 weeks ago, and I said, "Hey, you're the winner," and she said, "The winner of what?" So you didn't even know, because we've been watching this for several weeks to see when number 700 signed up, and just literally you must have done that just in the hour or two before that. So it was kind of funny.
You know what, Captain Ron, there are no coincidences.
Yeah.
It was meant to be.
Yeah. So hey Ron, what was it like for you with when Stephanie would get frustrated about flying and things like that?
Well, I mean, actually, the anxiety, I would feel a lot of anxiety leading up to any vacation we had planned, because I wasn't sure if it was going to happen or not. And
Sure.
many times it didn't. So when leading up to it, I'm as anxious as she is, in a different way.
Okay.
But, I was extremely happy when she told me that she contacted you.
So how did you pull this off, Stephanie? What made you actually go through with this time, other than the gun that I threatened to give to Ron?
I really don't know. I guess number one is I really miss our friends in Mexico, going back to Cabo, and
Sure.
It's been too long because of my fear, and letting him down constantly because of my fear, and I just really wanted to go. But up until like the last minute, I was thinking, oh my God, I knew I could get there. I wasn't sure I could get back.
Okay.
And that's really, going there, 3 days before we left, I listened to the harmonizer, thank you, like nonstop, and it would put me to sleep, and it would calm me down, and it was an incredible source of relief for me. And so when I got on the plane, I just listened to it nonstop. It was turbulent going to Cabo. And I hated every minute of it. And
Yeah.
I think I told you that because I have a wonderful husband. He always books first class for me so that I'm right next to the bathroom. And for me, literally, I would get up, like going over wasn't bad. Coming back, it was really turbulent. I must have gotten up like 15 times. Every time like the plane would really start to shake, I would go into the bathroom, and just, I felt safe there for some reason. I don't get claustrophobic.
Okay.
I can do MRIs. I don't get claustrophobic. I think that recording helped me tremendously. I'm definitely not cured. I definitely am still terrified. I definitely think, oh my God, how am I going to get on the next plane? Like I said, coming back Sunday, for me, it was really turbulent. It just scared the hell out of me. So I can't get past the turbulence. The turbulence just scares me to death. But I did it. I did do it.
Yeah, you did. And so what's the story that you tell yourself about turbulence? Is it about worrying about the airplane itself, the structural integrity of it, or what is it? What's the thought?
You and I talked about it briefly before, and I just think that, my feeling is, to me, it reminds me of an earthquake. It reminds me of it's going to fall out of the sky. And I really tried to remind myself, especially as I was listening to your voice on that digital recording, that the plane was on air pockets, and it was like being in like a little water, like little, and you know, when you're scared out of your mind and the plane is like shaking like crazy, it's hard to,
Sure.
to remember that. But I really did try to focus on that.
Sure. And you mentioned earthquake, and I think we didn't you live through the Northridge earthquake? Didn't you talk
Two
about
of
that?
them, yeah.
Two of them, yeah.
Staudinger and Northridge. And I've never gotten over the fear
Yeah.
of those
Yeah.
two things. Yeah.
So that speaks to trauma, and trauma. I would say almost everybody that I've ever worked with, particularly when it comes to turbulence and things like that, has been traumatized some part of their life, you know, and it sticks with you. So the issues go beyond that, and so some people might actually need to do, you know, focus more on their trauma and healing that, and than anything. But so basically, the way you got through it was distracting yourself with the harmonizer and disrupting your thoughts a little bit and hiding out in the bathroom.
And hiding out in the bathroom.
Yeah. Any other? Yeah. Did you have fun when you're down there?
No, I mean, Cabo is our paradise. I mean, we love it more than anything. So yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
She
Yeah.
if I can say, she did one other thing that you suggested she should do, and that is she introduced herself she wanted to talk to the pilots.
Can you move a little closer to the mic, Ron?
Oh yeah. She did one other thing that you suggested that she should try this time down, which was ask to speak to the pilots, tell them how important this flight was to her, and she did. And pilots going down were they didn't seem
not that great.
very nice, but the pilots coming back were very, very nice. In fact, they just said, hey, you know, come on in and talk.
Oh yeah, I went in. They shut the door.
Then I said, is she going to fly the plane now? I mean, this is radical. Now she's moving, talking to the pilots, and taking over the controls.
And then I started getting really nervous looking at like all the flight controls and all that. I was like, oh my God, this is too much.
Yeah. So overwhelm is a big part of your anxiety. Just getting.
I'm a real control freak, as my husband would happily tell you. I think that if I could fly the plane, I'd be fine.
Okay. Probably not likely in this lifetime, but it's always a noble goal. Yeah. Yeah. So anything else, what would you say to people who are just like you, what would you say to them? What's the secret?
Talk to you.
Yeah.
That seems a little too easy, but I would say, before you talk to me, you got to get the courage up to reach out to somebody. And that's the thing that I think, I don't want to minimize is it took you and a lot of support from Ron to do that, because there's no reason to ruin your trip for even a 2-hour flight, right? Or miss the thing completely. So, how I am. I raise your hand, put it down behind your head, pat your back, and say, "Way to go, Stephanie," because you deserve the credit. But it was fun meeting you. It was fun meeting you and talking to you, and thanks for coming on, because people don't know, but this is your first biggest fear, right? Is public speaking?
Yes, it's one of them. Yes, thank you. I'm sure that we will connect again, because we plan on going back to Cabo soon.
She's already committed to us going back in December.
In December.
Well, I'll look forward to it, and you know where I live, or at least how to get a hold of me. So we're looking forward to it.
Thank you so much. I'm so appreciative.
And Stephanie,
I want to thank you too. Thank you.
Yeah, Stephanie, I just want to share, because you may or may not have had time to look at the comments. A lot of people can really, really empathize and resonate with both the struggle, but also with the fact that you do have the courage to meet that panic and to meet that place. And yes, you're learning how to do that better and better. And the only way to do that is to practice it. There is at some point.
It's true. Yep. It's true. And I did tell him that the more that I have to do it more and more. I can't go 2 years without us going on a trip. It's got to be, maybe we just do Vegas or something, but I've got to do more.
We're definitely going to Vegas, because you're on a hot streak. So we're going.
Well, we wish you all the luck in the world, but the lights always seem to be on when I go to Vegas. So the odds are definitely not with you on that, but you won't have to worry about getting there safely on an airplane. That's for
Yeah.
sure.
Thank you so much.
Exactly, yeah.
Thank
You bet, you guys.
Thank you all.
And thanks
Thank
a lot
you.
again for coming on and wish you the best. Okay.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, we'll be in touch.
Okay, so let's do this. Let's switch over here. And unless there's any comments, Dieter, we will, oh, come on.
Well, just Susan Miglagio asking when are you coming to Boston? And I love also Don. Don said that he does fly for work and he does manage to get over the pond. But as soon as he is in Europe, he's thinking already kind of like having to get back. And that obviously sometimes takes the being in the moment and really being present on why you're there out of focus. But overall, a lot of people could identify with Stephanie's level of intensity, the level of intensity of the fear. And yeah, it's real. And I'm gonna say just go into the presentation.
Yeah, so the courage that Stephanie demonstrated to step up is what really gets people on the airplane, and that's the biggest thing, because you definitely can't get over it without on a practical matter, without getting on the airplane. You never know how you're doing, and from a technical standpoint, you have to actually activate your amygdala. You have to be in a little bit of discomfort in order for it to take place. That's why medications sometimes can interfere with your overall growth there. Okay, we had a couple of threads on the Birds of a Feather group. The birds group is really becoming much more and more active. And one of the threads was basically from an individual, and he was talking about he's got the courage to fly, was planning on a particular type of airplane, a 787. And wouldn't we all, Eric, like to fly that puppy? It's a awesome airplane. But he got word back from American that they're going to change the airplane, and it created a lot of disappointment. And I think without, this is not meant to shame or anything, but control is a big thing for all of us as human beings. We like to think that we have some control over our destiny, and it certainly underlies most of the fear of flying for people. Not knowing what's going to happen, not being familiar with all the things that happen, the sights, sounds, and sensations, creates a lot of disappointment. And so this particular thread drew a lot of attention there, people talking about their own experiences. Elaine volunteered a couple, and I think one of them she shared tonight there. And so then Diane and Eric and I thought, about just changing airplanes and changing your trip. And I'm thinking, do we really want to go this deep in there? But yeah, because change is the only thing constant. And you know that from the rest of your lives. But just imagine all that goes into getting an airplane and operating it, safely and to best practices and all that. It doesn't always go like it's scheduled. And many, those of you who have ever been on an airplane that actually went around, it started to land and it didn't land, how disappointing that can be. Mainly because of the expectations that you had that you would actually land the first time around. You don't think like we do. You got 15 minutes of free flight, but that's the nature of the business there. And I'll let Diane and Eric jump in there, but trips that they've been on. But when I shouldn't say that the having it go awry is the norm, because certainly things go more planned than they do unplanned. But when they're unplanned, that's a big part of why we do training, particularly when the weather's bad at the other end or things like that, or just getting off the ground. Just recently, Diane, have you had any delays, in the system?
Yes, in fact, just this past weekend, I had a 2-day trip. And as we were chatting earlier, we all got on, we got our passengers boarded, we closed the main cabin door, we pushed back, we stopped, we sat there for a while. The captain came on and said that there might be an issue. We had to go back to the gate. Then we wound up sitting there for a little bit. We pushed back a little bit, we went forward. We eventually got off, and we were probably at about an hour and a half late. A little bit more than that by the time we finally left. Everything was fine. The flight was wonderful. But those kinds of things, as Eric was saying, those sorts of things we can't anticipate. Weather, we don't have control over the weather. We really don't. And so if we have to go to an alternate airport, I've had that experience a couple different times. We really wanted to land in St. Louis Obispo, but we wound up in LAX because the fog was too great. So that was disappointing for our passengers, and it certainly was disappointing for us. But that's, as Ron said, that's what he and Eric trained for. And that's what they relay to us as flight attendants. This is what might happen. This is where we might go. So we have to remain very flexible in our expectations as crew members. So
Eric, are you trying to talk to us here?
No, I saw her disappear because I had this postage stamp view, and I was making sure she was done since I didn't see her face.
Yeah.
But my favorite one of all times, early 90s, and I had hair and everything, and we were somewhere down south, or I want to say Orlando or Tampa, and they were big international airports, but not the traffic volume like they have now. And we came out on a fall morning. All the crews came out, and they have a city ordinance there against ice, but nevertheless, all the airplanes were caked with ice. And to be fair, the airport did own one de-icing rig. However, it was not operative. So we were all looking at the airplanes like Bullwinkle and Moose for a minute, and we quickly figured out that the only way we're going to get out of there is waiting for the sun to de-ice the airplane. So all the line crews for all the airlines pushed the airplanes back in a row and pointed up at the sun. And we all had a big social hour with all the other crews from the other airlines. And we'd go, oh, look, there goes a chunk off Delta. Oh, look, United dropped a half a whole wing. Theirs is going faster. We should have painted the plane different. And they're all lined up, dropping chunks of ice off. And the passengers were, the lucky thing was they were enraged at all of us equivalently. Nobody got a leg up on anybody else. We all failed in our corporate goal of creating joy. They wanted to kill all of us. The only people that benefited was maybe Amtrak and Greyhound. But it was 2.5 hours, I think, before anybody boarded and we could get on and go. And just, there was absolutely nothing else we could do.
Right.
And so after we thermally de-iced, the passengers' lives were ruined because they missed their connections and everything else. And we were thinking, oh, goody, we'll be replaced in Phoenix or wherever we're going because we're so late. They'll put another crew on our section. They lose and we win. But we wisely decided not to PA how wonderful that was for us. And we just left when we could.
Yeah. So benefits come in all kinds of unexpected packages.
Ron, there's a quick question from Lane, which kind of like leaving when you can and flying as high as you need to. And Lane's question is, a main fear point from him is the height. So how is it determined that 40,000 feet is a good height for an airplane is basically the question. And how do pilots plan the timing to get to cruise altitude? So the two parts of the question is, how is it determined how high you need to fly on your flight? And secondly, how long does it usually take to get to cruise altitude?
I'll throw a quick one out there. We go as high as we can, as quickly as we can. So the only reason we stay down lower is because of traffic or restrictions climbing out, because jet engines are most efficient at high altitude, and airplanes travel faster because the air is thinner. So the speed of the airplane through the air, that's why you could look on the airspeed indicator and it only says like 280 miles an hour or so, but the speed over the ground is like 500 miles an hour. If you were doing 280 miles an hour and you were only about 5,000 feet, you'd be going about 300 miles an hour over the ground. So we get speed and efficiency from high altitudes, and airliners used to be restricted to 37,000 for the most part, but with the upgrading of the engines and the pressurization systems, now 41 I think is the tops for most airplanes out there. And why wouldn't we get up there? Because everybody else is trying to get up there. It's a busy day, so they have to stagger us until we can get past and get clear sailing. Anything to add, Eric?
Oh, just part two of the question, which is really an easy one. We never time how long it takes us to get the cruise. As we say in the business, on time is when we get there. We do our best and we get there when we get there.
Yeah, yeah. So that's pretty much the long and the short of it. Just in general, I threw in a comment that Kelly Green had written here. Kelly's been a long time Fearless Flight follower, and she said, flexibility is the key to fighting anxiety. Ultimately, it's about letting go. And I once had a flight from Paris to Dublin. They switched to a tiny puddle jumper the day of the flight. They put us on a bus to bring us to that tiny plane. My fear kicked in big time. I had a choice at that moment: try to control the situation or trust and let go. I chose the latter, and I'm happy that I did. No matter what the outcome is, you got this. So thanks for those words. Yeah, yeah. The only difference between a big airplane and a small airplane is the salary of the pilots, basically. So the certification and the training, all the same. If you can buy a ticket on the airline, everybody had to meet the same standards there. So that's just the way it is. Okay, let me share the screen here as we do the last couple of things here. This was the last part of this theme here, and that was the sounds. Okay, so we'll let Diane talk about the bings and the bongs and the dingalings.
Right.
Okay.
I'll be the head dingling. I'll be the head dingling at this point. I've been called worse, just no, and even from a passenger or two. So, but again, flexibility is key. Right. So as Ron and Eric have always said, there's a lot of different sounds that airplanes make. And as an aft flight attendant, when we're going, I hear those two screaming engines in my ears all the time. So we have a tendency to kind of think, oh, there's that noise, there's that noise. And we all know what it means. But
noise is your friend on an airliner.
Noise is
you never want to be on a quiet airliner.
Right. That's a bad
on takeoff, especially.
And I've talked to a couple of passengers who have presented themselves as fearful flyers and explained to them the sounds that they were going to be hearing so that they knew when they heard them, they wouldn't get freaked out too much anyway. Anyway, so going to the ding-a-lings, so we call them chimes, although we do say dings, but they're technically called chimes. Once that flight
and we will ring your chimes. So
I have an answer for that, but not.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So once that flight deck door is closed and the pilots are in their little neck of the woods and we're back in the main cabin with our passengers, the only way that we can communicate, they can communicate with us and up to the flight deck is through an interphone system. And we have phones that allow that to happen. So the chimes tell us different things. And I can only address what my airline, the chime system that mine has. And so chimes will tell us that, that the aircraft is in sterile flight deck, which means you guys up front, you, Eric and Ron, are busy doing what you guys do. And unless there's a huge emergency, we are not, as flight attendants, we are not to bother you. And so we know that's one set of chimes. And then there's another set of chimes after, for example, after we take off that says we are out of sterile flight deck, that we can get out of our jump seats, and that we, if we want to talk to you or vice versa, we can communicate with the pilots. There is another set of chimes that may occur that you may hear, which means the pilots want to talk to us for some reason. They need to go to the lab. They want some coffee. It's gonna get bumpy, or whatever they're going to let us know. They have that set. There's some bells that you hear because passengers hit the call button for the flight attendant. That's another set of chimes that we hear. And then there's another set of chimes that tell us that we're getting ready to descend. We're starting our initial descent, and that we are going back into sterile flight deck, which means, again, that you guys are busy. We are not to bother you unless it's an emergency, and we have things that we need to do. Another set of chimes tells us that the landing gear is coming down. So all of those chimes are basically messages that we interpret based on what's happening at the time. So just because the bells are ringing, the ding-a-lings, doesn't mean there's anything bad happening. Sometimes it's just, we may call forward to the flight deck. On a really long flight, I usually call ahead. I call up front after about an hour and say, hey guys, everything okay up there? Anybody want a Coke or coffee or anything like that? Anything you want to tell us? Sometimes it's just kind of a social visit, I guess you'd call it. So not all those chimes are telling you bad things, and the noises that you hear, those are just good noises.
Yeah, and since 9/11, it's a matter of operational routineness. Since there's less traffic in and out of the cockpit door, the flight attendants, as a matter of fact, just check on us every so often to make sure that we're still up there and haven't gotten off somewhere. So,
but there is an escape hatch in there, so we just want to make sure.
Yeah,
where they're supposed to be.
So you kind of got to know the airline version of Morse code to understand the chime system there. But it doesn't mean that we're going down and you shouldn't have got on the flight that day. Eric, talk about the barking. That's your specialty. 25 words or less there.
Oh, in 25 words or less, this generally is associated with Airbus narrow-body airplanes. It seems to be worse there. It also does it on the 7.5, but there's what's called a hydraulic transfer unit, a power transfer unit in the airplane, so that engine-driven hydraulic pumps can swap power to one side or the other during a high-demand situation, or if one engine is shut down, like during taxi and that kind of thing. And when it runs that drive shaft, which runs all the way across through the wing from one side to the other, it does sound like a dog barking in extreme agony. And you can always look around and see people uncomfortably looking around to see if other people are looking around. Does anybody notice that noise? Because it can go from barking to a hellacious grinding noise where you think, okay, how much longer can this thing stay in one piece? And all this just while you're taxiing. And then once the pressures are balanced, the other engine started, it goes away. But while one shut down for taxi out or taxi in, it can be pretty loud.
Yeah, and most of the airlines don't even haul pooches anymore, so you don't have to worry about us hurting one down there. But yeah, so there's a lot. If you were to see an airliner, modern airliner, with the skin off of it, it would look like an old steam engine. It's got so much garbage. You would be amazed at how they fit it in there so concisely and so compactly there. So it's really a work of art just to get the thing built and processed, or get it all moving in the same direction on the same day. Okay, let's talk just real quick to close up the show here about a couple of COVID-19 issues. One is, I thought this was interesting, airports step up mental health assistance as passengers' anxiety soars. Just talks about the fact that people are getting more and more anxious, and they're taking it out on people around the airport. And this article actually talked about what some of the airlines or some of the airports were doing to support the people in those efforts there. And then the last thing, I had a question come in, and she asked me, I think it was Bonnie, and she said, oops, I got the wrong slide. 1 second, folks. Here we go. And Bonnie asked me, said, hi, Capt Ron. I try and catch the fearful flyer birds of a feather to keep me in the right frame of mind when we travel again. COVID has kept us grounded, as it has most of us. And we're hoping to fly back to Michigan, I'm sorry, this summer, as we have our vaccines. We need to show our vaccination cards when we board. Thank you for your amazing podcast and team, Bonnie D'Angelo. Everything that you've read up until a couple of days ago would lead you to believe, and the pressures out there, no vaccine passports are going to be required. And then the European Union, just 2 days ago, I believe it was, I first saw this, said we are going to require that. But the good news is, if you're coming from the United States, since we're kind of the leaders in vaccination right now, if you could produce a document or whatever they end up deciding on to show that you have received your vaccinations, that you will be allowed into Europe. So Again, that's just a sign of the times there. And Diane is planning some personal travel. I'm gonna stop the sharing here as we prepare to close this up. Do any of you out there, have you ever heard anything different? That just the EU is the only one there. I haven't heard anything follow up as to what that's going to look like. I've heard some people talking. We were talking earlier about a digital. Oh, I know. Ron and Stephanie were talking about in Mexico. They had to get their testing before they left Mexico, and ironically they were insisting it be an electronic form of a QR code rather than a piece of paper or anything like that. So I kind of suspect that's the way that most of them will go. I know when I went to Hawaii, I had to get tested, and it was all digital. You could do the paper, but they really wanted the most convenient way was the digital. Any questions, Dieter? Anybody coming in about that or related to that?
Well, not so much the COVID, but there was one other question from I think it was Don, I can't remember. And he just wanted to know about the stalls. How likely is one to occur? When would they occur? So if we can kind of tie it up with that, that's.
So you said stall as in STALL?
As in STALL, okay. Like engines stalling, because you were talking about the engines and how, the higher and, the more efficient, but under what conditions could the engines stall and how likely is that? And I think inadvertently Eric kind of mentioned that, and that brought that up, I think.
If you could throw a piece of plywood over the engine at 41,000 feet, you could definitely stall it. So a stall on an engine is similar to a stall in a wing in that it's when the airflow gets disrupted, right, Eric? And so, one of the most sophisticated pieces of equipment on an airplane is the main engine fuel control. That sucker is fed with more sensors than your amygdala, and it's looking and measuring thousands of inputs there to make air density, the pressure coming in, the pressure going out, and all that. And that's why, I don't know, it doesn't cost as much as the engine, obviously, but it's a big chunk of cash to do that. And it's part of the sophisticated technology there, And when we get stalls, if we have birds like Captain Sully did, they can block the airflow sufficiently or damage the engine. Remember those compressor blades are in there. The front part of the engine is sucking the air in, compressing it. It's like a Coke bottle. It gets it narrower and narrower and narrower until it gets into the exhaust section when we add fuel and ignition, and then we expand it at a very rapid rate out the back end, and that's what creates the thrust. So if there's anything that, if you look at those turbine blades in there, they're like little wings, only they're spinning around there. They're like propellers in a way. And I don't know, what else could you add on that, Eric?
I would just say the likelihood of that ever occurring on a flight he's on is extremely infinitesimally small. There is no normal flight regime that would occur, and other than engine damage and a full engine shutdown, I can't imagine when that would occur.
Yeah. Have you ever had a compressor stall in flight, Eric?
I have not.
No.
I don't even know a guy whose friend's brother or his cousin had one. I mean, no.
No. Yeah, it's really, really rare. And it will make a pop, typically, because it's like the engine coughing. I have heard an airplane on takeoff just adding the power, and for whatever reason, it compressor stalled, and they pulled off and they went back to the gate there. But typically, you can have a momentary, if you had a gust of wind that was just the perfect storm of conditions and all that, you could have a compressor stall, but the engine will recover. That's the beauty of engines. And and when we shoot the birds into the engines to test them, they have 1 minute to cough or spit up or whatever they're going to do, and they have to come back to 100% thrust. So again, it's a rigorous part of the testing. So engine compressor stalls, just because of high altitude, the engine doesn't care. The engine could actually go a lot higher. The airplane can go a lot higher, but we can't go higher because we don't have the certification to the pressurization system, the ability to provide you with air-conditioned or sufficiently oxygenated air. Okay? All right. final words or last words or whatever. Hey, thanks everybody for showing up again tonight. Thanks to Ron and Stephanie. Thanks again to Dieter and Diane and Eric for helping me pull this off every week. We do hope you. We were bantering before I started with the thing talking about the fairs, and Diane was feeding us some information. She's got a trip coming up, so. If you're going to fly, get on it early. I know for a fact that the closer you get to the flight, the more the airline and the algorithms know how much you need to fly. And so the good deals will be gone. So make sure you get out there if you're going to fly, if you're thinking about it, and you know where to reach us if you got any issues at all. So once again, we'll be back next week for Fearless Flight Live. And thanks again for staying with us, folks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.